patenting is all about control, and Monsanto is all about control. You know, they're already the #1 seed company in the world, and they control those seeds through patents, through government monopolies, so they and only they can use those seeds.
Yeah, maybe you can genetically engineer the pig to be better if they use the genetically engineered products, and you just have an inline monopoly on this. Yeah, sure, that can happen.
Genetic engineering is really a radical revolution in food production. It's really a cell invasion technology.
It is a very, very big business plan.
And here's what's so critical. The patent isn't just for the pigs. It's for the pigs' offspring. So Mother Nature works for Monsanto's profit. Every time pigs naturally reproduce, that is a violation of the patent that you would have to pay Monsanto for.
Nerve gas, developed during World War II, was slightly modified to make insecticides. DDT was the hero of its generation. New technologies promised higher yields, increased food production, cheaper prices, and greater availability. By the mid-20th century, these technologies, along with new developments in plant breeding, led to the Green Revolution. 97% of the varieties of vegetables grown at the beginning of the 20th century are now extinct. Genetic uniformity leads to an increased vulnerability to insects and disease. Farmers found themselves trapped on a pesticide treadmill. The more they sprayed, the more they had to spray. The increased use of fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides increased costs, polluted water, and created health risks. Then in the 1970s, Monsanto introduced Roundup. Because of its ability to kill most weeds, it became one of the most popular herbicides in history. In the mid-1990s, building on technologies that use gene splicing, the Green Revolution turned into the Gene Revolution. Capitalizing on the new technology, Monsanto genetically modified its seeds to be Roundup ready. Normally, Roundup kills anything green, but if the plant is Roundup ready, when it is sprayed, it doesn't die. Monsanto's Bt corn, the corn itself is registered as an insecticide. This is because every cell has been engineered to manufacture Bt, a natural bacterial toxin. If a corn borer eats any part of the plant, it will die. All species have developed elaborate mechanisms over millions of years to protect their cells from invasion from foreign DNA. Genetic engineers have to overcome the integrity of the species barrier to insert a new genetic trait into a plant or animal. When scientists began genetic engineering 30 years ago, they believed that one gene expressed one trait, that transgenic DNA would be stable even when forced to cross species barriers.
A new technique of molecular biology appears to have allowed us to outdo the standard events of evolution.
It is not known what sort of risk this is going to create because we have no tests.
The conference delegates voted against the moratorium, but did pledge to keep all recombinant DNA and genetically engineered organisms contained safely within laboratories. Currently, both agriculture and medical biotechnology use genetic engineering. Medical biotechnology has created many life-saving products. These pharmaceuticals are made under controlled conditions in secure labs. Genetically modified plants, unlike drugs, reproduce, and once released into the environment, cannot be controlled.
Using biotechnology to produce food is not new. For nearly 6,000 years, people have used yeast, a living organism, to make bread rise. And we've used biotech for almost as long to ferment beer and wine.
So there's really nothing new here. But that is completely wrong. Genetic engineering is really a radical revolution in food production. It's really a cell invasion technology. You know, people have heard they're taking a flounder gene and putting it in tomato so the tomato can last in cold temperatures. But people don't ask, how does that flounder gene get in that tomato? How does it get in there? And what really happens is, the only way you can do it is to invade the cell of the tomato and deposit the flounder gene. Well, what's good at invading cells? Bacteria and viruses.
After 12 years of searching, Monsanto found a soil bacteria that is naturally immune to Roundup herbicide. Their goal was to genetically engineer DNA from these bacteria into various plants. Some of the E. coli DNA recombines with the Roundup-resistant bacteria. Then the technicians smuggle the engineered DNA into the cells of the corn plant they want to modify. Cells will naturally reject foreign DNA, so they developed a method using soil bacteria that causes tumors in plants. They use this bacteria to ferry the engineered DNA into the plant's nucleus. There are also two other methods used to get the engineered DNA through the cell wall. One uses a stream of electricity to create tiny holes in the plant cells so they become vulnerable to infiltration by foreign DNA. Another is the gene gun, which blasts particles of gold coated with engineered DNA into the plant cells. Each of these three methods needs a promoter gene that turns on the desired characteristics. The promoter gene is often extracted from the cauliflower mosaic virus.
This capacity of bacteria and viruses to invade mammals in different ways is what really has a lot of people edgy about biotechnology, because that's really what the tools are all about. In order to move genetic material from one organism to another that don't normally cross, you've got to sort of behave like bacteria and viruses and invade into the cells and become established, just like the virus must become established.
And they do one more thing. They attach to that an antibiotic marker system.
The antibiotic marker is a gene which is naturally resistant to a specific antibiotic, so later they can test whether the genetic cassette is being expressed.
The most cataclysmic force in the food system right now is the fact that the medical community is just terrified about the loss of antibiotics. No one really understands how using antibiotic marker genes in genetic engineering techniques might contribute to the problem. The biomedical community on a worldwide basis is absolutely focused on this problem now.
Transgenic manipulations, we'll start seeing pieces of DNA interacting with each other in ways that are totally unpredictable.
We have now learned that genes function in complex networks, and a single gene can express or influence many traits.
An application for a patent on pigs.
Es geht ganz einfach die Einforderung von Lizenzen auf geistiges Eigentum.
Are pigs an invention or the common property of all of us? Who owns the pig?
Es geht die Patentierung, die Privatisierung von Gensequenzen.
Genes on pig DNA, decoded and described by the Monsanto Corporation of America. But these genes have always been there. Will we soon be forced to pay fees for nature's heritage?
It is a very, very big business plan, and it includes control of food, from the seed in the field to the fork.
The politically charged patent is soon to go into effect worldwide. Christoph Zimmer, a farmer from Swabia, sees his livelihood in jeopardy. Is he soon to be prohibited from breeding pigs because their genetic material belongs to a corporation? Christoph Zimmer is now traveling through Germany with patent applications for pig genes in his briefcase. He wants to shake up the other farmers to protest against the sellout of life, as he calls it.
Wie kann denn jemand ein Patent auf Dinge beanspruchen, die es schon gibt? Da kann er gleich ein Patent auf Sonnenlicht beanspruchen oder dass man hier zum Kinderkriegen ein Patent braucht und nicht dann Lizenzgebühren abführen muss.
The discontented farmer believes that these piglets might also be affected by the patents the American agricultural concern Monsanto is applying for, because the genes cited therein are not an invention, but already exist in almost all pigs. As proof, Zimmer wants to collect some hair for a DNA test.
Also hier kann man jetzt die Gene untersuchen an der Haarwurzel und Monsanto behauptet jetzt, wenn dieses Gen hier vorhanden ist, dann sind die Tiere besonders wüchsig, besonders fleischstark. Es ist einfach so, zu wem ich auch gehe, da glaubt man das nicht. Warum sollte irgendjemand hier kommen können und ein Recht auf etwas geltend machen, das eigentlich schon lange den Landwirten gehört oder der gesamten Gesellschaft gehört? Und deshalb denke ich, ist einfach wichtig, dass man sich jetzt auf die Barrikaden stellt und man einfach auch sein Recht an seinen eigenen Tieren hat. Das ist die Existenz von mir und eigentlich von ganz vielen Landwirten hier in der Region auch.
A field in Schwäbisch Hall is Farmer Zimmer's next destination. He wants to inform Markus Betzelberger and his father Ernst, who breed pigs, about the patent applications brewing in faraway America.
Hallo Ernst, hallo Markus. Hallo Christoph.
The scientists at Monsanto claim in their application that certain pig genes promise more rapid flesh growth. If the patent is granted, Monsanto could in future also demand license fees for the Betzelberger's animals if this gene is naturally found in them, and the farmers cannot prove that they didn't use Monsanto's patented breeding methods.
Ja, das kann's im Prinzip nicht sein, dass unsere Tiere praktisch der amerikanische Konzern gehören und ja, wir im Prinzip die Tiere noch füttern dürfen und halten dürfen, aber die darüber entscheiden dürfen, was mit den Tieren passiert.
Monsanto, company headquarters in St. Louis, Missouri, heavily guarded like the maximum security wing of a prison. This is where the idea for a worldwide pig monopoly was born. In the lab, scientists are hard at work on an ongoing series of new patents. The goal is worldwide domination in the field of food production. An annual sales volume of more than 4 billion euros is realized here, up until now primarily by means of genetically engineered plants and seed.
Diese Oligarchien der Weltkonzerne haben ganz wenige Menschen, ganz wenige Gruppen, die haben eine Macht heute, wie sie nie ein Kaiser, nie ein König, nie ein Papst in der Geschichte der Menschheit gehabt hat. Und Monsanto ist einer dieser Weltkonzerne, sehr effizient übrigens, unglaublich dynamisch, unglaublich vital. Das sind Feudalherren neuesten Types.
Monsanto began by manufacturing insecticides and later went on to genetically engineer the plants themselves for greater resistance. This allowed the plants to better tolerate Monsanto's own crop sprays. Of primary importance was that everything could be patented.
Patenting is all about control, and Monsanto is all about control. You know, they're already the #1 seed company in the world, and they control those seeds through patents, through government monopolies, so they and only they can use those seeds. The common heritage of the world, the seeds of the world, are now owned primarily by one company that has them in monopoly.
The American Patent Office, USPTO. This is where Monsanto has submitted its pig patents for approval. The patent authorities are not yet prepared to issue a statement, but the decision on whether to grant the patent could set the precedent for how the other 159 countries where the patent application has been submitted will decide. The major question remains whether life forms should be subject to patents at all.
Patenting living organisms is settled case law here in the United States, and I do it for my clients every day.
This allows companies like Monsanto to take up a key position in supplying vital resources, involving the control and manufacture of food products. Now they are setting their sights on the pig, which hasn't even been genetically engineered yet.
It's a very broad patent that would grant, if it's accepted worldwide, would grant Monsanto control of a significant percentage of all the pigs in the world. And here's what's so critical. The patent isn't just for the pigs. It's for the pigs' offspring. So Mother Nature works for Monsanto's profit. Every time pigs naturally reproduce, that is a violation of the patent that you would have to pay Monsanto for.
In the Betzelberger stall in Swabia, Christoph Zimmer wants to obtain further DNA samples. In Europe, as well as in the United States, patents are not only being granted today for genetically engineered organisms, but also for naturally occurring animals, for example, lab animals. Every piglet in whose DNA inspectors find fattening gene markers could then be subject to licensing fees. How many of them are already affected? If there are too many, Zimmer says, the Betzelbergers might as well close down operations. A few pig bristles for the good cause. The farmers have never spared a thought for DNA structures. For decades, they simply crossbred according to appearance. Now, Christoph Zimmer only needs to find a lab willing to do the test. Not an easy task, because even conducting this test infringes on patents owned by the American company. At the laboratory, it's best to remain anonymous, because biotech companies like Monsanto have often sued for patent violations. This is big business. The worldwide market for pork is estimated at several billion euros. For Farmer Zimmer and his colleagues, a lot is riding on the test results.
One of the most under-publicized actions of Monsanto with its patents is its persecution of American farmers. We have just completed a study that shows that they have threatened thousands of American farmers with lawsuits for violating their patents. That over 129 lawsuits have been filed by Monsanto against American farmers, and they have reaped millions of dollars. And this is Monsanto coming in with its huge legal team, all of its power coming after a small farmer in South Dakota or Nebraska or in Indiana, trespassing on their land, making up, in many cases, making up lies about what these farmers were doing and not doing, persecuting them, and often driving them out of business. We have documented this. If this is what Monsanto will do to these farmers, imagine what they'll do to the farmers around the world. If this is what they're doing with their patents on crops, imagine what they'll do to farmers when they've patented the animals of the world as well.
Ruined and convicted, Percy Schmeiser was sued by Monsanto for patent infringements worth several $1 million. Reports that products with utterly unknown protein compounds were allowed to enter the food chain.
Monsanto introduced the first genetically modified hormone for animals, bovine growth hormone. And what we know now is that the research appeared to be rigged to avoid finding problems. When they wanted to show that the hormone did not interfere with fertility in cows, they allegedly added cows to the study that were pregnant prior to injection. Other researchers pasteurized the milk 120 times longer than normal to try and destroy the hormone.
The introduction of a hormone to boost milk production in cows shows the kind of massive pressure exerted to launch new products on the market, In Washington, Jeffrey Smith meets with a former inspector at the FDA, Richard Burroughs. The man is a true patriot with children serving in the U.S. Army. Nevertheless, he refused to license the genetic product because the examiners found the test strips from Monsanto insufficient and demanded new ones.
I mean, they could have come in and argued the science of it at a higher level and gotten it taken care of, but for some reason, since I guess I was the obstacle that had asked them to do these extra studies, which were not completed to my satisfaction, it was easier to get rid of me than it was to do the studies, and a whole lot cheaper. So somewhere in the chain of command, they made this point, and that person listened to the money and the politics and agreed that the best way is to get rid of me and keep the products. That was how they finally got me out of the end stages of the review process. They finally said, well, you're no longer competent to do your job, you're fired.
Obstacles are placed in the path of the press as well. Popular reporter Jane Ackery researched for Fox News the side effects of the bovine growth hormone, such as udder infections and pus residues in the milk.
We found that there is a difference in the milk. Monsanto says there isn't, but there is. Their own studies show that the milk has a higher spin-off hormone called IGF-1, which is a very potent growth hormone. It's found in mother's milk. It helps babies grow. It also helps cancerous cells grow. It helps all cells grow. On the Friday before the Monday air date, it was going to air on the 6 o'clock news. It was a 5-part series called The Mystery in Your Milk. Monsanto sent the first of 2 very strongly worded letters that said, stop the reports, your reporters are idiots, their sources are incompetent. And a week later they sent a second letter from a New York lawyer that said that there would be dire consequences for Fox News if the story airs.
The reporter is called off the story. Her superiors decide that the report first has to be revised by the Fox News lawyers and Monsanto.
The lawyers would say, you know, say what Monsanto says, it doesn't matter what you found, put in this, don't use the word cancer. What ended up being a re-review process went into 8 months and 83 different versions of this story, which is unheard of. Nobody does that. The end result of this 8 months of re-editing the piece was that they fired us at the first window in our contract.
The hormone is still on the market in the United States, and pigs all over the world are today fed primarily feed made from genetically modified plant. Trucks with genetically engineered soy meal are on the roads around the clock, like here in the port of Fredericia in Denmark. Per Digge imports the animal feed from Argentina. He has now been sued for patent violations by Monsanto. In Argentina, the biotech giant introduced its genetically modified plant on a grand scale, according to its familiar pattern. But it was unable to obtain a patent or demand licensing fees there. Since the company does have a patent in Europe, however, it wants to collect the fees here after the fact. The Danish importers are appalled and refuse to pay. They see themselves as a pawn in an economic power struggle. Argentinian patent law does not allow for the patenting of genetically engineered organisms, and the country has so far managed to stand up to the political pressure coming from North America.
At have en GMO-fri produktion i Danmark jo faktisk ikke muligt i dag. Og vi kan bruge eksempler fra Sverige og Norge og Finland, hvor de har GMO-fri produktion. I svineproduktionen har de store problemer i de lande. Det skyldes primært, at den merpris, man skal betale for at få GMO-fri soja, er steget år efter år. Det går kun i en retning, og det skyldes igen, at den GMO-frie sojaproduktion i Sydamerika, Nordamerika, udgør efterhånden så lille en del af den samlede produktion, så mulighederne for at få den GMO-frie vare ud til en fornuftig pris bliver ringere og ringere. Omkostningen til sporbarhed, sikkerhedsstillelse og lignende stiger simpelthen voldsomt.
The Danish importer knows that the penetration of whole regions with genetically modified feed is irreversible. Proving that pig feed is biologically pure is virtually impossible to finance. And the fear remains that, to top it all off, they could lose the lawsuit against Monsanto. on the way to the slaughterhouse, pumped full of genetically modified feed. The meat doesn't even have to be labeled as such when it comes onto the market. The long-term consequences for the consumer remain to be seen. But Monsanto's intention is clear, a patent on pig genes. And what's next after that? Will any risks be avoided in the future?
Monsanto and some of these companies have something very different in mind. They don't want to change their technology to fit life. They want to alter life so it fits their technology and their profit.
Yeah, maybe you can genetically engineer the pig to be better if they use the genetically engineered products, and you just have an inline monopoly on this. Yeah, sure, that can happen.
These pigs should not be forced to eat genetically modified feed, nor should their offspring later be genetically engineered.
Also wir schauen jetzt bei der Luise, das ist eine unserer ältesten Tiere hier, mit einer ganzen Herde Ferkel. Und bei der wollen wir uns auch mal schauen, ob an diesem alt angestammten schwäbisch-hessischen Schwein aus einer alten Linie auch diese Gene mit drin vorkommen. So, einmal, zweimal.
Christoph Zimmer dares to test his own pigs. He has hesitated for a long time to test them for the gene marker for which Monsanto is claiming a patent. Monsanto is not alone. In laboratories around the world, the race is on for patented pig DNA. Thanks to the help from the Chinese, the Danish have already made a great deal of progress, as have the Germans. If a company succeeds at exercising near total control over pig breeding, thanks to a wide-ranging patent, it could legally begin to genetically engineer the animals as well, something that Monsanto has already done with plants. A nightmare for nature conservationists, a lucrative vision for industry.
Man kann sich durchaus vorstellen, dass man analog zur Pflanzenbiotechnologie auch für die tierische Produktion eben fremde Gene in Tiere einschleust.
A way to simply correct small flaws of nature in order to boost production. And the result? The super pig.
Ich glaube nicht, dass es das Superschwein geben wird. Es wird möglicherweise mehrere Superschweine geben, die eben entsprechend den jeweiligen Produktionsbedingungen und auch den Anforderungen der Märkte optimal produzieren können.
If there only weren't that annoying problem of the declining birth rate among pigs and cattle. Genetic scientist Wolf, who doesn't believe the culprit can be genetically modified feed, has launched a new experiment with cows.
Die Kiki trägt ein zusätzliches Gen, das ursprünglich aus einer Qualle kommt. Dieses Gen kodiert für ein grün fluoreszierendes Protein oder abgekürzt GFP. Wenn wir sie jetzt bei Dunkelheit mit blauem Licht anleuchten würden, wird sie tatsächlich eine grüne Schnauze haben. Für uns ist die Kiki deswegen interessant, weil wir von ihr Embryonen erzeugen können, die ebenfalls grün fluoreszieren. Und diese Embryonen können wir dann in einem sehr frühen Stadium im weiblichen Geschlechtstrakt lokalisieren und können so Wechselwirkungen zwischen dem Embryo und dem Muttertier sehr gut untersuchen.
In the USA, environmental activist Jeffrey Smith has heard about another experiment. He therefore pays another visit to Jerry Roseman, the ruined pig farmer. Roseman is disappointed with himself and with the fact that he believed the promises of the genetically modified feed producers.
I tried to do the right thing. You know, I was one of the technology people. You know, I was right on the cutting edge of everything for the farm, you know, because this is what we were told to do. And ultimately, you know, they lied to us. We were told that these products were safe when we were handed them to us, and ultimately I found out that there's virtually no testing, and anyone that comes up with any kind of a problem whatsoever with it, there's absolutely no cooperation other than to bury them in paper and make them go away.
Now Roseman is doing the tests himself without outside help. He has been able to squirrel away some of the genetically modified corn which he is now occasionally feeding to a few cattle.
And these animals 4 years ago were sterile. We got them off of the corn, got them on green grass, and they reproduced fine. This last winter I went ahead and started to experiment again and fed them the problematic corn here. And at the present time these three cows are barren and the bull is basically sterile. And that was after feeding the corn to them for approximately 90 days. And here next week we'll take them back off of the corn, and eventually the bull will come back to being viral, and the cows most likely will conceive a calf for next year. And this is what I've determined myself here with the limited funding that I can do myself.
Die ganz kleinen Züchter werden bis auf wenige Ausnahmen in der Tat wahrscheinlich aussterben.
Only a few consortiums will remain as winners in the battle of the pig. This is what Christoph Zimmer fears. But he wants to make life difficult for them for as long as he can. He visits the test laboratory to find out here whether his own livestock could be affected by Monsanto's patent application.
Die Ergebnisse zeigen, dass die Varianten, die in dem Patent beschrieben sind, schon jetzt in der Natur vorkommen. In ihrer Herde finden wir alle 3 möglichen Varianten, TT, CT und CC.
Könnte ich dann hinterher bei Ihnen im Labor beweisen, dass ich nicht nach der Methode von Monsanto gezüchtet habe?
Das ist der springende Punkt, das geht nicht mehr. Die Nachkommen der getesteten Tiere sind nicht zu unterscheiden von den Tieren, die Sie hier schon in Ihrer Herde haben.
Farmer Zimmer's only hope is that the patent application is denied. Worldwide, the monopolization has already long begun, silently and swiftly.
Als wenn mich das jemand gefragt hätte, vor 5 oder vor 10 Jahren, hätte ich gesagt, das ist unmöglich. Wie kann sich jemand einen entsprechenden Anspruch bloß herausnehmen? Wenn wir uns jetzt aber anschauen, in welchen Abhängigkeiten gerade in den USA die Farmer schon sind von diesem Konzern, dann ist es nicht mehr etwas, worüber man lachen kann, sondern dann ist das wirklich zum Heulen.
I think this is probably the largest biological experiment humanity has ever entered into.